My vision for Canada is to once again make Canada a beacon of hope and opportunity for all. A nation where we respect our charter and where our government never has the opportunity to freeze our bank accounts without a court order. National unity is at an all-time low. Many people have been traumatized by COVID lockdowns and government mandates. I'm running to be a bridge builder, to unite the party and to unite the country. Business owners will have the confidence to take chances again. We will develop our natural resources while protecting the environment without a carbon tax. We will respect freedoms and uphold our Charter of Rights. I'm running to make Canada one of the freest and most
Dr.
prosperous
Lewis,
country in the world.
You're out of time. Let me quickly pick up on one thing that you said. You said that we have never been so divided, or national unity has never been so challenged. What are you basing that on?
If we look at the last 2 years, we have seen families torn apart by COVID. We see parents not talking to children. We've seen a government that has pit Canadians against each other. There are millions of people who cannot travel in their own country, people who are unemployed. The government has used COVID to divide Canadians, and it's time for us to heal. I think our declining democracy, people have lost trust and confidence in our democracy. The invocation of the Emergency Measures Act and freezing of people's accounts without a court order has led people to question our institutions, such as the media and our political institutions. Officials had just listened to the truckers, they would not have been there that long. In addition, the vulnerability that Canadians face knowing that Big Brother can go into their account and freeze their account without a court order, that has set our democracy into a declining state. We need to uphold our Charter of Rights. We need to uphold our freedoms and ensure that governments never do that again.
Thank you very much.
The attack on Ukraine should be taken seriously. We have to ensure that we do not exacerbate the tensions that are already there. Unfortunately, we have not invested enough in our military. Yes, I would commit to meeting that 2%. Right now, we are underfunded, and that is one of the reasons why we have not been able to supply the needs that Ukraine could use to assist them. The issue is not about quantity, it's about quality. We need to make sure that we bring immigrants here who can contribute to our society. I came here when I was 5 years old, and we need a compassionate immigration system that will have jobs for people. We need to make sure that First Nations people are at the table where the decisions are being made. And we also need to make sure that we keep our promises. We have been promising year after year clean water on reserves, and we have not delivered.
Would you, Dr. Lewis, implement all 94 recommendations?
I will implement any recommendation that uplifts the lives of Indigenous people. We have let them down, even our missing and murdered Aboriginal women. We have not committed to even dealing with that issue, which is a fundamental issue that affects the core of the society on reserves. William Wilberforce, he spent his life fighting for the abolition of slavery, even though he never knew whether or not he would see that materialize. But he had convictions to stand up for what he believed in, and he did not matter if it sacrificed his political career.
Lewis.
Investing in Canadian oil and gas is the best way to grow our economy. We can enter into agreements with Indigenous populations that will actually enrich those populations. And many of those agreements have been entered into, and it has been beneficial in uplifting those populations. We also need to ensure that we eliminate Bill C-69 and Bill C-48, which is really crippling our local capacity to develop our oil and gas. We have to get our products to market, build pipelines. We could go through Churchill and get our products to Tidewater and offset dictatorship oil. I think it was very short-sighted for us not to invest in pipelines, and we're seeing the implications of that now. In Europe, 40% of all the oil that's purchased is purchased from Russia. We're actually financing the war between Ukraine and Russia by not getting our products to offset dictatorship oil. Every day we import 555,000 barrels of oil. We have the third largest accessible oil reserves on the planet, which we are leaving untapped. It is a great resource that we could use to rebuild our economy, develop our infrastructure. For every job that's created from the oil and gas sector, 7 splinter jobs are created across the country. This could help us out of the recession. Canada signed on to the Paris Accord. They didn't meet their targets. The US pulled out of the Paris Accord. They met their targets under Donald Trump. The issue is not whether or not we sign on to the Paris Accord. The issue is the resolve to make sure that we leave the future, for future generations, better environment than what we inherited. There is no partisanship in the environment. We must work together to make sure that we are protecting the environment. The carbon tax doesn't reduce emissions, it just increases revenues. We need to ensure that we adopt technology that will bring down emissions, that will increase conservation, and we have to have a credible environmental plan. And that plan has to have a component of education to change the way we interact with the environment. It is very important that we look at the entire life cycle of a product. So even when we commit to something like net zero, we should not be virtue signaling to use the environment as virtue signaling. We have to ensure that we look at the entire life cycle of a product. So even if we have a green product, we have to look at the entire production from the start to the finish, such as green energy, such as green cars, electric cars. What is the entire product? I'm very concerned with things like electric vehicles, that we do not consider the fact that it starts off in poor countries, in some African countries where children as young as 5 years old are working in cobalt mines. So when we think of protecting the environment, we must think of the entire impact, the entire life cycle. I wanted to add on my point for the environment that we can protect the environment without punishing average Canadians. Every time they're filling up their gas tanks, they're heating their homes, they're putting food on the table, they're being punished with the carbon tax. I would cancel the carbon tax. Canadians are tired of legacy politicians that will say anything to get elected. Wokeism and cancel culture are robbing people of their voices. Our Charter of Rights needs to be defended. As your leader, I pledge to work tirelessly to heal our institutions and win back the trust of Canadians. But I can't do it alone. I hope you will join this movement to restore our declining democracy and return prosperity to Canada, because only then will we remain glorious and free.